We want to head now to Major Garrett and John Dickerson, who are standing by right now. John, to you, I want to ask you, when you're hearing about this, it was very clear who the audience was here. He at one point said the people who are going to benefit are Ohio, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, John.
Yes, if you take the president's electoral map, and particularly those states he took from Democrats, the ones where he surprised Democrats, this is the core of his message. You heard the vice president talking, announcing and setting up the president there. He talked about how the president has been fighting for the forgotten man. This was a speech to the forgotten man. It was not only in support of American workers, but as Major pointed out in our conversation, it was a pointing the finger at global elites, at the other countries that are a part of this deal, that have lobbyists and are trying to pull one over on the United States. The president several times mentioned that other countries were laughing at us, putting an emotional charge into this message that really was, he went point by point about all the bad things in the deal, but there was an emotional pitch to this as well. And that emotional pitch was aimed right at those voters who voted for him. And who will love to see him not only keeping a promise, and there was a lot of talk about that, but also in the way he kept it, being the full Donald Trump that they voted for.
And Major Garrett, to you, you know what President said, that the U.S. will still be the cleanest, environmentally friendliest place on earth. But how?
Well, that's an interesting and unanswered question from this administration. If you look at the executive order the president signed in late March, it nullifies most, if not all, of President Obama's clean power regulations on existing and future greenhouse gas emitting factories. The president wants to open up federal lands to fossil fuel exploration, natural gas and oil. He wants to open up parts of the continental shelf of the United States that have long been off limits to that kind of fossil fuel extraction. He wants to cut the budget of the Environmental Protection Agency by more than a third. Those are maneuvers that are very friendly to the fossil fuel industry, but they are not consistent with either certainly the previous administration's approach to environmental policy or even George W. Bush's approach to environmental policy, and certainly not George H.W. Bush's approach to the environment, because he's the one who reauthorized the Clean Air Act. In so doing, horrified and angered conservatives who are much more pleased with this president's approach to this entire question of environmental regulation. The important part of the president's speech was, as John just suggested, the Paris Accord the president just told the United States is basically a swindle. That there is this elaborate tax system of which the United States has to pony up most of the billions of dollars to be given to other countries that historically are big polluters or are going to be bigger polluters. We get nothing but the regulations, and we send tax money out, and guess what? India and China will still produce coal, so coal jobs will still be created. They just won't be created in America. The president's message was, economically, this is injurious, it's a swindle, it's a hoax, and we should never have done it in the first place. Now, trust me, there is an entire body of intellectual and environmental policy thought that argues precisely the opposite. Stated briefly, that argument is, we're the most developed economy in the world. We have been a polluter for many years. You can't expect developing nations to be as aggressive in their pollution management as we are now, because guess what? That would harm their economy. So we're big enough to absorb these environmental regulations, and we're big enough to chip a few billions of dollars in on an annual basis to see that global warming is addressed. That's the counter-argument. The president did everything he could, rhetorically, to nullify all of those points of view dealing with global consensus on regulating greenhouse gas emissions. From a sovereignty point of view, he said the U.S. will do it its own way, and people can follow or not follow or renegotiate or not, but we're going our own way. And that was essentially the president's message.
It's been fascinating, Major, also to see India and China come out today. The energy minister in India today coming forward saying they're pushing forward on renewable energy and looking at their track record as well, the plan that they have pushing forward. I want to ask you, John, the president has said he wants to renegotiate this climate deal with Congress and move that forward. He's got, tax reform, he's got health care he wants to do. Is this really a priority for the president?
I don't think it's a priority. And also there is a gargantuan logic hurdle here, which is that the negotiation would have to get over this basic fact. Is mankind involved in creating global warming? The president doesn't believe that that's the case. He believes that it's a hoax. you cannot negotiate with the other countries in the world